From the studios of Foxborough Cable Access, located in the center of Foxborough, Massachusetts, you are watching Around Foxborough.
Hello and welcome to Around Foxborough, the show where we learn about the people, places, and things that make Foxborough the gem of Norfolk County. My name is Mark Rivard, and this is a special election edition. And just so you know, Foxborough Cable Access does not endorse any specific candidate, but we do give them the opportunity if they want to come and speak on our airwaves. And with me today is Becky Grossman, who's a candidate for the Massachusetts U.S. House 4th Congressional District. Welcome, Becky.
Thank you so much for having me today.
So it must be a little bit difficult to campaign in the world of coronavirus, I'm sure.
Well, I think the part that we really miss out on is the ability to have those in-person conversations with constituents and residents throughout this district to hear firsthand what's on their mind. And, there's certainly such a wide variety of very real hardship going on in families' lives right now. And of course, I'd really like to be out there with our residents. I am enormously proud of our team's ability to continue campaigning in new and remote ways. We were very quick to pivot to virtual ways of connecting with residents, and we've been using every tool imaginable in social media channels and in Zoom, and of course, reaching out to folks by phone. And we're going to continue doing that and doing our very best to reach each and every voter and resident in the district.
Excellent. So you've had some virtual town meetings, so to speak?
Yeah, we've had a variety of them. We've done them both on Facebook Live, where we've had a lot of interaction from folks, honestly, not even just through the district, but folks who are really interested in this race, interested in the issues, passionate about the future of our country. We've done smaller group sessions, like sort of recreating house parties or community meet and greets, with folks as well. And I think all of us have embrace technology in new and different ways. But, the most important thing for me has been continuing to be able to have those conversations with our residents and their families with as much frequency as we would be if we were out campaigning in more typical times.
Yeah, it's very important to have touch because that's how you learn what's important to these people.
Absolutely. And listen, which is, really what running for office is all about, is really hearing from people about what's on their minds, what they're going through, what their life experiences are, and what we as elected officials can do to improve the quality of life and help families to get back on their feet and tackle the biggest challenges of our time. Whether we're talking about the health and safety of our community, getting through this pandemic and coming out of it, whether we're talking about the economic recovery and how we're going to help families get back on their feet. These are the kinds of things that, that people are living and going through right now. And, I miss being able to be out and have those conversations in person.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult. All right, so let's step back a bit. Can you tell us a little bit about your background? Because I know a lot of people out there probably want to say, all right, who is Becky Grossman?
Yeah, so I'm a Newton City Councilor, but the job that I cherish most in my life is being a mom. I'm a mom to 2 young kids. My daughter, Madeline, who turned 9 and just finished 3rd grade, and my son, Jack, who's 6 and just finished kindergarten. I'm running for Congress with the fierce urgency of a mom, fed up by what is going on in this country and determined to make change. I wake up every day thinking about what the world is going to be like when my kids and all of our kids are grown and may want to have families of their own, whether we will finally have addressed the climate emergency, which is here and growing, whether we will have kept our schools and our streets safe from gun violence that has torn communities apart, disproportionately affected communities of color, whether we will have finally provided quality, affordable healthcare and childcare to everyone in this country. And I feel that if there was ever a time to step up and get in the fight, it's now. Out of 435 members of Congress, we only have 25 who are mothers of school-aged children. I believe that if we had 100 or 250 moms in Congress, it would change the conversation in Washington completely.
Absolutely. As a father, I totally understand that line, because a lot of people they don't think about the impact on our kids. They think about what's going on now, but to have young kids, you don't want to see them grow up in a world that's chaotic, which is sort of what we're in right now with the whole COVID-19. You were also, if I remember correctly, you were assistant DA, Middlesex County.
Yes. Yep. I worked as an assistant district attorney for Middlesex County. And, in that role, I had a front row seat to seeing what happens to parts of our community who have been left behind. And in many ways, really in every way, by the time somebody comes to our court system, especially at the district court level, oftentimes the first time they've had any sort of interaction with the court system, we have failed them long ago. And it really was a front row seat for me to what we need to do to be addressing the deep and systemic inequities in this country. And I'm certainly talking both about the systemic racism that is very real, present in each and every city and town in this district, Commonwealth, and country, as well as the economic inequality. One of the very hard truths about this district that I've talked a lot about on the campaign trail is that there is a 5 times differential in annual median household income from the north to the south part of this district. That is not okay, and is emblematic of the economic inequality that is taking place all over our country. There is not a doubt in my mind that we have so much work to do, whether we're talking about the cost of housing and increasing our stock of affordable housing, whether we're talking about economic development, especially in the South Coast and in the gateway cities and in the communities in the 4th District that had the hardest time coming back from the 2008 recession and are being the hardest hit by what we're going through right now. These are the very real challenges that I'm focused on in this district, and why I'm so focused on tackling that inequality from every angle, because, as I said, there's a lot to do.
Yeah, and one of those big costs, and I noticed in looking at your website, healthcare. That is a huge problem in this country, and the Obama administration tried to, take care of it. It doesn't seem to be 100% working. Our current administration is not really doing anything about it, except trying to fight what's going on. What's your take on the whole healthcare? What would you do if elected?
Yeah, well, I think we have a long way to go on healthcare. And, I am somebody who believes that healthcare is a human right. And I want to see every person in this country covered in a quality, affordable way as quickly as possible. I believe that expanding a public option is the way to do that on a pathway towards Medicare for all. And I think that makes the most sense, because it would get the most people covered and give them the option to choose Medicare and get people covered in that quickest way possible. Healthcare is something that I think about a lot personally. My mother, 4 years ago, went from being healthy and vibrant and active one day to being incredibly sick the next. And it turned out that she was diagnosed with a rare, awful disease. It is not okay that it costs thousands of dollars a year in prescription drug costs in order for her to stay alive. And it's not okay that families all over this district, our Commonwealth, and our country are forced to choose between the roof over their head or the food on their table or the prescription drugs that they need to care for themselves or their families. And it's why we've got to get serious about taking on big pharma, about taking on corporate special interests, and tackling the unconscionable cost of prescription drugs in this country. Another reality about healthcare and how far I think we need to go is we've seen what the effects are of people not having that adequate coverage in what we're going through right now. And we've seen how disproportionately communities of color have been affected in terms of both contracting COVID as well as in deaths from COVID. That is not okay. And it is directly tied to the fact that so many in our community, especially in our communities of color, are uninsured and underinsured when it comes to healthcare.
Yeah, and also, I believe it's about 75% of your income in retirement will be spent towards healthcare. As you mentioned about your mother, and I lost my mother 4 years ago, and she was in a nursing home, and the amount of the cost is just astounding.
It is. And long-term care is, the cost of that is astounding. We've certainly seen how the long-term care facilities have also been impacted in a very disproportionate way by COVID and what we're going through. And the fact that here we sit towards the end of July, and we are still talking about how so many of these facilities, how so many of our hospitals, how our nurses, how our caregivers don't have access to the PPE that they need to care for themselves, their patients, and to protect themselves and their families, is just utterly unconscionable. And it just speaks to the complete lack of leadership that we have had from this administration, who has just handled this crisis in a shameful way.
Absolutely. So if you could think of one more major issue you'd like to tackle, should you become Congresswoman, what would it be?
So, I want to talk about taking on the NRA. Okay. I mentioned earlier that I have 2 children, and my son, Jack, recently finished kindergarten. Last fall, when I was taking him to school for his first days of kindergarten, I had to fumble to find the words of what to say to him about how to run in a zigzag pattern or find a quiet place to hide in his school if a shooter were to show up there. That is not a conversation that any parent should ever have to have with their child, or a fear that any child should ever have to live with in going to school. I refuse to allow Congress to offer thoughts and prayers after every school shooting or every shooting in general and fail to do anything to stop the next one. That's why I want to go to Washington and take on the NRA. Now, hand in hand with that, we've got to get the money out of politics. I mentioned earlier special interests, and this is yet another place where special interests have corrupted our government. And if we're going to take on the NRA and make the reasonable gun reforms in this country that we know we need and that so many Americans agree on, we have got to get the money out of the hands of corporate special interests and have our elections decided by people and not disproportionately affected and influenced by corporations and special interests.
And also term limits, maybe, especially on the national level. We've had people in office for my entire lifetime.
Well, I really feel getting money out of politics would be a huge step forward in so many of the kinds of reforms that we're talking about. And, that also goes hand in hand with electoral reforms in general. I'm really excited about how vote by mail can invite more people into the voting process. It shouldn't have taken us a pandemic to get there. But reforms like vote by mail, like, automatic voter registration and, ending gerrymandering and other forms of voter suppression. So, I think that these really fundamental reforms change and improve the way that we choose our leaders. And, having the most participation in the voting and electoral process that we can is going to be a key to progress.
Okay, so now this is the time where I say, okay, you have 5 to 10 minutes. Tell the voters of Massachusetts why they should elect you.
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, I am running for Congress as a mom to my 2 young kids, and with a passion for protecting the long-term best interests, not just for my kids, but for all of our kids. Right now, out of 435 members of Congress, we only have 25 who are mothers of school-aged children. Imagine what we could do if we had 100 or 200 or more moms of young kids in Congress. Imagine the progress we could make on paid family and medical leave. Imagine the progress that we could make on universal pre-K and quality, affordable childcare. Imagine the progress we could make on healthcare. Imagine the progress we could make on tackling the climate emergency. I look at the issues through that lens of a mom through the lens of what is in the best interest for families and what is going to move this country forward. And I believe that if we are going to make progress on the issues we care about, we need to be sending new and different types of people to Washington. That the voice of a mom is a voice that is missing and needed. And I'm very proud to offer that in this race.
Thank you. I guess I have one quick little question. How was the homeschooling during the pandemic? Because you had one in kindergarten. Did you have to do a lot of that?
I sure did. I'll admit, keeping a kindergartner engaged over Zoom is a challenge. And, I know how hard it was for me and for my husband, and we have the privilege to be at home with them during this time. Obviously, I would like to be out with the voters and campaigning and out in our communities in every corner of this district. But my husband and I have largely, of course, been quarantining at home with the kids. And knowing how hard that experience was for us and how hard it is as a dual working household to be juggling this with kids at home, I can't imagine how hard it's been for families all over this country who don't have that luxury and who are out every day at work, whether it's in the hospitals, in the grocery stores, on job sites, and how they're able to, manage that and support their kids in being able to learn remotely. It's something that I've been thinking a lot about, and I really am thinking a lot about those families who have not had the same privilege that I have had in this time.
Well, let's just hope and pray that we find a vaccine for coronavirus before your other child, before they both get into the grades. I mean, it's just so difficult. I know I have friends who have young kids and trying to balance work with also doing the school work. And it's crazy. I can totally sympathize. I don't have that. My son is older now. I don't have to deal with that. But I hope they find a vaccine soon. I really do.
It's in addition to that, I think also for our teachers who, have been working so hard to be able to provide a quality education from home and have many of their own, commitments in their own lives, whether they have kids of their own at home or whether they have, older parents or health issues themselves that they need to struggle with. And, it's really tough all around right now. And I really do know how hard, they've been working and really applaud what they've been doing. And, would really like to see us be able to be in a position to just support our teachers as much as we can. And I just think that as we're hearing from the administration, threatening our educational system and, trying to essentially bully schools at this time. I just think that we need to do everything in our power to work with our health experts, to listen to our medical experts, to be able to think about how we can conduct education as safely and responsibly as possible. And really am thinking about those families.
Yeah, we talk about the first responders, we talk about the essential workers in the grocery stores, but the teachers are also very, very important in what they went through to deal with it and the remote learning and what they may have to do again. So yeah, absolutely. Well, I do thank you for stopping in, Becky. Thank you for joining us, and I wish you a lot of luck in the election.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time and opportunity to be with you today. And to all those out there who are watching and listening, love to earn your vote and look forward to continuing the conversation with all of you throughout this process and beyond.
And that was Becky Grossman, Democratic candidate for the Massachusetts U.S. House 4th Congressional District. And that'll do it for Around Foxborough. My name is Mark Rivard. Have a great day.